Greetings and salutations to all of you lovely, thoughtful, fluffy, non-fluffy, and just as equally lovely listeners out there. You may notice that it's a bit of a different sound at the moment. That's because I am recording this in a very different fashion. I am somewhat on location at the moment in my house, but I'm also on a time crunch at the moment, so that's why I'm kind of doing this informally. So I got my phone, in my pocket, and I'm talking. So I'm hoping that everything that I'm saying is being picked up. But how's it going? How are you? How are you doing this week? How is your week? Please let me know. I would love to hear from you. It has been sort of a whirlwind of a week for me so far. A lot of changes have been happening in my life recently. I think I'll start last week I talked about FOMO, and we kind of tackled that. So I just want to say thank you to all of you who responded and had something to say about that, whether it was in the comments or on social media, Twitter, Blue Sky, and YouTube and other places. You all have definitely exceeded my expectations as far as a response is considered. Archie, stop that. Archie is scratching things. So yeah, it's a good topic of discussion to really tackle, because I think a lot of furries in particular go through FOMO and go through just a sense of missing out or a sense of fear when it comes to events. So hearing all of your responses and how you deal with it really did bring new perspectives to my opinion and to my viewpoint and how I personally perceive FOMO. There were some responses that I did not expect. Like, for example, I heard some people talking in the comments and other mediums that they try to ignore it. They try their best to ignore FOMO and try to stay busy. So I just want to address that particular aspect real quick, because I was very surprised when I saw the amount of people who mentioned ignoring FOMO as a whole. I would say that I agree and disagree with it for a couple reasons. So I know what I would say most of the comments were getting at when talking about ignoring FOMO. What they were getting at was they try to occupy themselves and stay busy where possible and not bog themselves down with the reality of the situation, which on one hand or one paw can be helpful, but at the same time, on the other side of that, where I disagree with that, is it can eat away at you over time, and unless you address the reality of your situation. Now, that's not to say that you can't stay busy and you can't find things to distract you. Those can be healthy, and those can be, very productive when you're in that moment or that state of mind. But I don't think outright ignoring it and just like not acknowledging it is really the most wise choice, given it might work for some people. It might work, if you can just turn off your mind or your brain and, just not worry about it, then go for it. If it doesn't bother you and you feel good about it, then then that works. But when it's under the surface like that, and it just gives a sense of like, if you just like push it down, right? If you shelf it, or try to bottle it and then it comes up later, that's not healthy. That is an unhealthy aspect of FOMO. So, I just I think about that, and I think about it being, a real thing. But I hope that helps. I hope that episode, the last episode, and the social media posts as a whole helped with kind of finding acceptance in the reality of I can't do this thing that I want to. So instead, I'm going to, what I would say is acknowledge it. Don't push it down, don't ignore it altogether. But at the same time, be happy for people who are doing the thing that you wanted, and try to find joy in that. And also, find joy in other things while you are not there. Like we mentioned, hey, you can go hang out with some friends. You can make some plans with somebody. You can talk, go see your family or something like that. And I think that's really important to fill the time with something that you really enjoy. Or maybe, maybe you can tackle that seasonal project that you've been looking to do for a long time. Like, for example, in my case, I'm actually staring at it right now. My closet, and this is not a gay joke, okay, but you can make it if you want. My closet is an absolute wreck, okay? Not the fursuit closet, that stays pretty neat, but like, ironically, the normie closet that I have in my bedroom is a wreck. Like, there are just clothes everywhere, there's shoes all over the place. There's a lot of stuff in there hanging up that doesn't even fit anymore, that I barely wear. So, that's something that I could look at as an opportunity. Like, okay, I'm not at this thing, or I'm not doing this thing, so I would like to tackle a project, something that I've been putting off for a long time, which that's a prime example of something I've been putting off for a long time. Yeah, it's come to think of it, I can't remember the last time I actually cleaned that closet out, which is probably a bad thing. So, yeah, so that's what I'm talking about. Like, find something that is valuable, not just sitting away and rotting away on the couch, which I tend to do quite a bit, unfortunately. Rotting away on the couch, or, what could have been, what might have been, and, just trying, you know what I mean? Like, being depressed about it, just in those moments of just like rotting away, sitting somewhere or whatever the case, just playing video games, which can be a good distraction, or it can be a good way to pass time, or, distract yourself. In those moments, I've noticed of sort of just sitting by yourself and trying to ignore or fill your mind with some sort of a medium, like, movies, TV, YouTube, which I'm very much guilty of. Those are the times when it can be very difficult, and also like very, I don't know, those are the times that eat away at you the most. It eats away at you because in that moment, it is just you and your thoughts, right? And my therapist actually, I talked to my therapist yesterday about this type of thing, and he talked about cognitive dissonance, okay? And I think this goes very, very closely with what we were talking about with FOMO in particular. So those of you who don't know, cognitive dissonance in the unofficial definition is a sort of, it's a rumination, right? It's a rumination of events or situations in your life that can cause anxiety, depression, and stress. So what does that mean? I personally tend to be very neurotic. I have a lot of like headiness, right? I'm in my head a lot, especially when I am faced with a decision. And you'll have to excuse the noises here. I am hanging up laundry as I'm talking to you because it's laundry day. So I apologize about the crinkling bags, but anyway, so yeah, I can be very neurotic in my personality and my decision making. So where cognitive dissonance sort of enters into the neuroticism, and when it becomes a problem, according to my therapist, is when you ruminate and you start to go in circles on something that's on your mind. So I'll give you an example. One of the examples that I talked to him about is, and he knows that I'm a furry, he knows what I do, he knows that I go to conventions, so that is all out on the table, and we don't have to be strangers about it, right? So that's a huge thing to be thankful for, right? I don't have to hide from my therapist and lie, or, just like give him a half truth or anything. He's aware of what I do. So, it's important to be honest in therapy, by the way. Anyway, so prime example of cognitive dissonance has to be when I was going to Anthrocon this past year. So this would be, wow, like 3 months ago already. I can't believe that. It is October as I'm talking to you right now, which is insane to think about. But yeah, so during right before Anthrocon this year, as many of you know who do attend that convention, hotel rooms and hotel reservations, anything hotel related that has to do with that con is a nightmare and a half, okay? Getting the room lottery, getting any reservations for any hotel in the block of the convention, let alone the main hotel, the Westin, is a nightmare, okay? You need to be, like on point when it comes to getting a hotel room for Anthrocon, because the con is so freaking big, right? We are projecting 20,000 people right now for that convention, so you can imagine it's pretty wild, and it's pretty, it's insane. So you got to be like, on point with your reservation, with the lottery, everything. So that being said, I was already stressed out this year when it came to a hotel room. Oh, geez. Why did I put that in the bottom? Sorry. Now, putting wet clothes in the very bottom is not very smart. Anyway, so I was already stressed out because when I went to apply for the lottery, how it works is you get a link from the site, the website that gets you a spot in the lottery, right? And from there, it's a gamble, right? So I went the day that reservations in the lottery opened. I went to reserve my spot, and I never got the link from the hotel website that says, hey, you have a spot for Anthrocon, here's your spot in the lottery. Go claim your hotel room and go get it. I was literally at work, and I think I've told the story before, but this is going to be a good little wrap-up point for cognitive dissonance. I went to go, I was at work when this happened. It was like on a Wednesday, and I went to the bathroom. I didn't even have to go. I was just like, I need to get this link. Otherwise, I'm not going to get a room, right? So I sat in the bathroom and waited for like 20 minutes, and nothing happened. No link, no invite, no nothing from the website that lets me reserve a spot for Anthrocon. So, and on top of that, I already had some friends who were coming over from the UK. So I was like triply stressed trying to get a room because they had nowhere to stay. Like, I wasn't going to go and redelegate them to friends' rooms, because that wouldn't have been fair. Like, I wanted to make sure that we were all together for this con, because it would be very special for them, right? So thankfully, long story short, I contacted Ronnie Noodles, Red Dragon, to any of you who don't know, who's part of the hotel staff, and he hooked me up with a link. I ended up getting a room like 5 days later, which is insane. Like, I did not expect that to happen, but it did. It happened. And shout out to Ronnie once again for helping me out with that. But, that's not where the dissonance came in, right? So all that to say, here's where the dissonance happened. When I went back into the system to make sure that everything was good with the hotel room and everyone was set, I got a message from a friend, a close friend, and they were like, hey, we have a spot in the Westin. We have a spot, like one room spot in the Westin, and it's all yours if you want it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is the main hotel, right? That is the main hotel. Like, that's insane. And one spot means like one spot for me, right? And then I had to ultimately reject it because I had already gotten the room with my, friends who came from across the pond, and wanted to make sure that they were having like a good time and everything, like I mentioned. But yeah, what put me in a tailspin in my dissonance was the indecision, okay? My indecision for the whole situation, right? I spent probably a month, and that's way too long, by the way. I spent like an entire month ruminating on this decision, like, oh my gosh, do I stick with my hotel room situation, or do I like take that spot in the Westin because it's the main hotel? Now, any rational person would say, well, of course, you take the first option that you have made with your friends, and stay in your current situation and tell them, yeah, I can't be in the Westin because, I already have this whole room set up, right? But yeah, I mean, yes, I see that. But that selfish part of my brain, because we all have that selfish part of my brain was saying, you deserve this, you can do this, they'll be fine in that room, just find someone else to fill the spot in your room, and then go take the Westin spot because it's the main hotel, and these are good friends of yours as well. So that, as much as I hate to admit it, I was in a just a cycle, constant cycle of what should I do, what should I do, what should I do, and though one of the options was more selfish than the other, it still put me in that spin of just like, I don't know what to do. So, like I said, ultimately, I ended up going with my first option of having the original room set up with my friends and the ones who came over as guests from the UK, and it all worked out, right? And, other friends, they found a fourth roommate and it all worked out from there. But the point is, for that entire, like I said, it was like a month or 3 weeks or something like that, I just sat in indecision, going over and over and over and over what I should do, like questioning what I should do. And that there, my friends, was where the dissonance really entered in and where it showed its ugly self, right? My therapist explained it really well. He said, oftentimes, and by the way, he described my situation, my stress, my anxiety, everything that goes on in my brain. It is, to him, clear cognitive dissonance, right? And we tackled that yesterday a little bit. And he said, the worst thing you can do with cognitive dissonance is nothing, right? When you're faced with a decision that you know you have to make, whether it's change of job, whether it's a new car, buying a house, a relationship, or any big event. It's not like, do I want Jimmy John's or Subway today, right? That can be a mild form of cognitive dissonance, but we're talking like major life things, major life events, right? The worst thing you can do in cognitive dissonance when faced with a decision like that is nothing, because that can develop anxiety, depression, stress, and they can eventually develop into disorders if you're not careful, right? So I had to kind of face myself yesterday. I was like, man, this is actually me. Like, this really describes how I'm feeling a lot of the time with major decisions, right? And that leads me, hi Archie, what you mewing for, huh? Archie's giving me the mews. Are you amused, Archie? Hi. Meow? Sorry about that. Anyway, he's wanting food, I think. He's looking at me like, oh, is it dinner time again? Is it second dinner? How about 11sies? Yeah. So anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so one of the things that has been, which leads me into my next point, which this is sounding more and more like a TED Talk the more I talk. One of the things that has been leading me into this sort of tailspin of dissonance has been sort of a major life change that has been cropping up in my life. And I've talked about this before a little bit, but I want to tell you what's been going on. Today I had a job interview, and it's for a job that's in my field. So like I've said before, I have a bachelor's in psychology, and I've worked in the field for very little time. And I've jumped around to jobs, various over the past few years, but my current job I've had for about 4 years now, and it's good and I like it, but my brain and my heart and my spirit are all telling me that it's time for a change, because frankly, I'm getting bored and it's getting monotonous, and I don't feel like I'm moving up or improving in my current job. So I think it's time to make a change and actually, work towards my career that I originally went to school for, right? So today I had an interview. I'm not going to say where it is or what the job is necessarily, just because not only is it, sort of like outs what I'm going to be doing, and I don't even have the job yet, so I'm not going to say what it is exactly, but yeah, the interview went very well, and I have to be honest, I was very nervous, like you do at an interview, but I think it's a super blessing that I talked to my therapist yesterday about this, because it's what we've been talking about for the past couple weeks mostly is, what should I do, doc? Like, should I should I stick to my current job and try to move up, even though they haven't moved me up, or should I take on a new job in the field that I went to school for and build a career that way? And as a good therapist says, and as he did, he explained that he can't tell me what to do, but he can sort of guide me towards a decision. So today was just the interview, right? And again, I'm super thankful that I had my therapy session yesterday to sort of put my mind at ease and put things to practice that I'm looking to do for either a new job or my current job, right? It really helped today with the process. But so today was just the interview, and it was the meet and greet, and took a small tour around the facility, not too crazy. The people that I talked to are great. I had had an interview with 3 people, so 3 different levels of management were sitting in the room, and we were all talking, and lasted about an hour and a half or so, and I was there for a long time actually, and I left that place feeling pretty good. Like, I felt pretty confident. I was feeling, rather successful in the what I said and what we talked about, and there was even like a written test at the end of it, but that was kind of like about, okay, how do you here's like a test for a software. Do you know about the software? Yes, I do. Okay, so how do you use the software? So I did, and I think it went okay. I don't think I aced it necessarily, but I think it went okay, right? So as it sits right now, everybody, I may have a new job in the next few weeks. I'm definitely nervous. I don't know what I'm going to decide, but I know something for sure is going to happen, is when and if I get this offer from this job, if I do, and then when and if I go to turn in my 2 weeks at my current job, they're probably going to want to fight for me. Now, that's not me being, it's not me being pretentious. It's not me trying to, build myself up or anything, but I've been given good marks on my evaluations at my job, and my HR rep actually pulled me aside a couple weeks ago, and she asked me if what she can do to help that I see a future at my current company. And I told her, I said, look, I need to see compensation. I need to see that you value me and my skills, and I need the pay to match that. And she said, okay. So she's in the know. She doesn't know that I applied for this job. She doesn't know that I'm looking for a new job, anything like that. But she's aware, we'll say, of my current status as far as looking like potentially going forward with a different career, right? So that being said, when it comes time to when and if it comes time to put in my 2 weeks, then they're gonna have to make a decision. And they're gonna have to decide, do they want to keep me? And they're gonna have to fight for me, because, as my dad would say, I have the cookie. You want the cookie? Here it is. Now come get it. Or you can watch it go bye-bye, right? So I feel rather blessed that I'm in this position right now of, I don't want to say power. I don't like that word to use for this, but it is definitely an upper hand position, right? If my company told me personally that they value me to the point of wanting to move me up and compensate me, then they should want to fight for me, right? If my HR manager is saying those things to me, then let's just say that the words should match the action, right? So all this is going to be interesting, I actually saw my parents tonight and we talked, and my dad gives great advice because he's been in multiple different businesses over the years, and he's been in management positions. He's been in, corporate America. You name it, he's done it, and he told me a great bit of advice. Tell them what the reality is. So be firm with your words. In other words, just tell them how it is. Here's my 2 weeks, and stop talking. And they will fight for you. So that being said, talking less in a situation like that will get you more. In this case, less is more, right? So all that to say, if any of you are in that position right now, or if you're looking to, find a new career, or, move up in your current position at your job, whatever the case may be, sometimes the best thing that you can do is say as little as possible. Let them do the talking, and they will give you, or they will seek to give you, more than you asked for, right? So that's also where honesty comes in. So one of the things that my dad talked to me about before the interview was being honest gets you more than you realize. So in other words, you've all heard the saying, be yourself in an interview, right? I think a lot of us struggle with that, especially in interviews, right? Sorry, 1 second. I need to check my phone here. There we go. Sorry about that. Being yourself in an interview, we say that, but when it comes down to it, we put on a front with an interview. We all do it. Like, we wear the nice clothes, we do our hair, we, put on the cologne, maybe we'll, wear something, like we'll shave or whatever the case is to, put ourselves in a position of professionalism, which is okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with, looking good and making yourself look good. And yeah. But at the same time, you have to show them your real self. So in every job interview I've ever had up until this point, I feel like I put on a front. I put on sort of a fake face, or some sort of a dynamic that's not truly me, right? And I have to say, today's interview felt more real than any other interview I've ever had in my life, right? So that's what comes in with being honest, is not only being yourself, but honesty goes a long way. And I'm very glad that they asked me the questions. And when they asked me the questions like, what would you do in this situation? What do you look for in a workplace? How about your coworkers? That kind of thing. I answered honestly, and I told them what I expect and what I want to see. And they loved my answers, or at least they seemed like they did, Also, one of the things that my therapist told me about was sometimes you can turn the tables on the interview, and you can be the interviewer and ask them questions, right? So he gave me advice. He said, come up with a list of, at the very least, 3 questions that you want to ask the interviewers. And in a way, you are turning the power dynamic back on them, right? So it's a small little adjustment. It's a small little thing that you can do, right? To basically bring yourself to a similar, or like a grounded level that, is not so like you're down there and they're up here, right? You can kind of bring it back down to a more equal scale. So I prepared 5 questions that I asked the interviewers. Because what do they ask you in an interview? They ask you, do you have any questions for us? Is there anything you would like to know? And as a matter of fact, I did. And I asked those questions. And I have to say, and I kid you not, in that moment of having those questions presented, right? In that moment of me asking those questions, I felt the room shift. Like the mood and the vibe and everything just shifted to a more equal playing field. And I addressed each person like, what do you think about the workplace? What do you think about the chemistry? What do you think about the different personalities here? Those kinds of things. So I'm telling you all this for free, right? All this to say, these are some tips that I learned just in a couple days that I think can serve all of you well in an interview, or in a setting where you're going to move up in your current place of work, or even in life, like when you're trying to, say, buy a car, right? Negotiation skills sometimes can be less is more. Say as little as possible, show them the money, and they're going to give you more than what you asked for, right? So, I know that was a lot, and I'm sorry for the absolute mind flood of information that came from my gob, but hey, this is what's been going on the past couple days. So, in a way, I may be seeking, excuse me, I may be seeking therapy right now, as it were, um, with my therapist, and I may be going on this mental health journey to improve myself. But in a way, I have to be honest. This podcast is in fact a therapy for me, and I want to be honest with that. Like, this podcast that we're doing right now is in fact a therapy for me. So a lot of you have written in to me and have said, like, I love your podcast and it helps me. It, like, it's good listening. It, makes me think. And I want to say thank you so much for all those kind words. Like, it really means a lot to me, and I would not have it any other way, really. But I just want you to know, if I haven't mentioned it before, I'll mention it again. This podcast is 100% a therapy for me, and I just have to thank you all for it, because it really helps in a weird sense to have this sort of audio journal, as it were, to tell you what's going on in my life, and I like to hear what's going on in your life. And like, this helps me more than you realize. This helps me more than I could ever say. Like, it really does. And you all have given so much. You all have, like, excuse me, not just with your words, but with your actions, your support and everything, and being able to have this opportunity to just talk, just talk to you and say what's on my mind, and like how we can just chill, and have a good time together and not have to worry about expectations. And I don't have to worry so much about being entertaining for you, or doing like these crazy wacky segments or whatever the case, for as a lot of shows or podcasts do. But it's just, I just want you to know that it makes me really glad to know that you all are listening, and that we can just sit together and talk, have a conversation, and just be in each other's presence. And we don't have to worry, we don't have to worry about any pressures, and we can just take a moment, even if it's for half an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, and just talk, just talk and be here together. So I just want to say how much that means to me. Like, it really does mean a lot, and it makes me want to do more, makes me want to hear more from all of you. And I want to do my best for you as much as I can. So, because overall, you have no idea, and many of you don't realize, but you all certainly help me to do my best as much as possible. And I want to be as good as I can. I want to, do better, and I want to, I just want to do so much more. And all that to say, excuse me, all that to say, I really appreciate you, and really appreciate what you've done for me, and all the stuff that you've given over the years. So, all right, I think that's I think I've gushed enough, But I'm gonna say, friends, even with all the informality and all the all that's been said today, I think that's the podcast. I think we've accomplished some things here, and I believe that we've gotten to a new place. And I really hope that something with this job, like either this job or my current job, works out, and on to brighter futures. I'm not entirely sure what the decision will be, either on their part or my part, but I'm not going to be stuck anymore in cognitive dissonance. I'm not going to be left in a tailspin any longer, because I know it's not healthy, and I know the worst thing you can do in a situation of dissonance is absolutely nothing. You know, taking no action while you're having cognitive dissonance is not healthy. You have to, you have to do something, right? We don't need to be static in those moments, Now, if it's all that to say, to quote the Stoics here, if it is out of your control, sometimes doing nothing is better. But in this case, this is something that is within my control. And this is something that I can do, and something that I can help to control. And I'm going to do something about it. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to how this turns out. But I just want to say to all of you listening, thank you. If you made it this far, thank you. And I really appreciate all of you for the love and support and everything that you've given. It really does mean the world to me. And just remember the Latin phrase, sic parvis magna. Remember greatness from small beginnings. Never forget where you came from or where you started, and every step that you take on your journey, because this is your journey alone, whether that is greatness created by you or greatness that you find, you shall find it. Seek it out and you will find. And in the same way, remember, always be you and be yourself. There has never been anyone like you in the past. There won't ever be anyone like you in the future, and there's no one like you right now. So only you can do the things the way that you can, the way you do best, because there's never been anyone like you in the past. There's no one like you right now, and there's no one going to be like you in the future. So remember, this is your journey, and this is your path, and you have to run your own race, because nobody else can run it for you. And always remember, thank you. Remember what you've done in my life. You have made my life so much better, and you have made me, you've changed my life, and I would not be here without you. And I am so grateful that I get to do this every day. Not that I have to, but that I get to. And that is something that I will never quite forget. So until next time, my friends, this is Samson Kitty Fox. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being here. And I will catch you all in the next episode. Bye-bye. Bye. Love you all. Meow meow.